Bobby Del Rio with me. Let's get started.
Hey.
Hey, oh my gosh, Bobby, so excited. So we're just going to be transparent on here. We got this together. We were going to do a different show and we last minute just got to know each other. So I'm excited, but I actually was reading your bio yesterday going, whoa, this is fun. So you're in Canada. You've been, you're just talking about being interviewed. So Clubhouse, we talk about Clubhouse a lot. I think people who don't know what Clubhouse is, it's a great platform where you can be anybody and get on, in a room with anybody. Like when I say anybody, like Grant Cardone, Fortune 500, some of the biggest entrepreneurs in the world. And it's just a really cool platform where you can actually speak with these people. And it's a really great place to go. And I love that you kind of got in there, but you're in the film industry. You do a lot. So let's just talk about it. Where are you from originally? Is it originally Canada?
Yeah, so I was born in Toronto, and then moved around a little bit. I lived in the Bahamas for a few years as a child. Then my dad did law school in London, Ontario, and then we moved back to Toronto when I was in grade 4, and I've been there ever since. I'm turning 44 on Sunday, so I've been here for a long time, like 35 years in a row. I was born here. So.
Okay, well, I'm in Duluth, Minnesota, so 3 hours away from Canada. I'm pretty much an A. So you hear it. And I was just in Montreal 2 months ago, and they thought I was Canadian, and they thought I was French. And I'm like, nope. Duluth, Minnesota, that's me. So I get it. But let's talk about it. So you got started in the film industry when?
Okay, the film is, so I've been acting ever since I was like a child, like 6 years old, right? But I guess... like I first got an agent when I was about 19 years old. So when I was in theater school, I started doing movies for like HBO and USA Network when I was about 19, 20. So I guess I would say that's when I started in the film industry. It's about 20, 25 years ago.
Okay. So you're an old pro. Here's the question that I want to know. This is just out of my curiosity. Comparing the Canadian film industry to Hollywood, what would you say?
So now because of Clubhouse, I'm now repped in Hollywood as well as Canada. So I go back and forth. I was just there for a month. I mean, the biggest difference is money, but that it really, really changes everything. Like I was doing lunches in Beverly Hills a month ago, and a friend of mine closed a $40 million deal with Netflix at the table, right? It's just like the amount of money in Hollywood it just changes everything. It changes like the culture, it changes the dynamics, it changes the business relationships. What's really interesting about Hollywood, I found, is that it's so deeply nepotistic. Like you can't get invited to a party. You're not even going to find out about screenings. There's certain restaurants you're not even going to know about if you don't have the right connections. Everybody's vetting you all the time. A friend of mine brought me to this like pretty swanky party in West Hollywood with a lot of heavy hitters. And it was funny because the person was like, well, who is he? Now, I'm one of the biggest people on all of Clubhouse, especially in film. So once she was like, oh, it's so-and-so, she's like, oh, okay, yeah, he can come. But it was like, wow, like if I didn't have status, I wouldn't have even been invited to the party. Like it's not really like that in Canada, a little bit, but Hollywood, man, every single day, I think that Hollywood can be the loneliest or the biggest party of your life, depending on who you are.
Well, I agree because I was just out there. So I'm out there a lot for this show. Sometimes I go out, I have friends out there, and I spend a lot of time in Beverly Hills, West Hollywood. And it was really interesting, just little things like when you say you have to be vetted or you have to get in there. But I'm from Duluth, Minnesota, so it's fun for me to go out there. I really enjoy that lifestyle, and I fit in enough where I can have fun, but I'm not in the big film industry part. I'm not in the film area. So I'm not in that major, like you got to know everybody or you're not getting in, but we still have this issue. So my girlfriend got us into the Polo Lounge, which is at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. You would think, oh, it's a restaurant, right? Well, she had to call people just to get us a dinner because we couldn't get in. We were last minute on some things. And I'm like, I don't care where we eat, but we wanted to try something different. And she's been out there forever, but she was connected to enough people and is to always get us into restaurants. but it's like that. Like, I'm not used to that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's kind of funny to me. I'm like, well, okay. I mean, are we going to go eat in a nice place tonight? But at the same time, so we get in there, I got to tell you the story and you can kind of maybe share an experience, but she had a hat on, but it was a beautiful hat. Like, she was dressed very nice. They're like, you can't wear a hat in here. And she's like, no, I'm not, I'm keeping it on. They're like, no, you're not going to sit down. So she agreed. She's like, fine, seat us. So we sit down, and one of our guests who showed up later had a hat on, and he was trying to be funny. He sat down, and the manager came up and he's like, you got to take it off. And he said, no, I have a medical condition. He didn't, but he was just trying to be pushy. And she's like, I'm going to get blacklisted from this place. But it's true. Like, and she, and of course he took the hat off. He was just trying to be funny. But at the same time, that's a thing. Like, it's a thing. You're not getting in, you're not giving in. And my brother is all about the real housewife culture and all the fun stuff. So we did the West Hollywood experience one night, and it's so different. And I think it doesn't blow my mind, but it's an interesting experience to people watch and to kind of watch what's going on as well when you're out there.
Yeah, Los Angeles. And look, I was there for a month for the first time in my life, but I like, I'm really tapped in, like, I know some pretty major people in Hollywood now, and celebrities, and you name it, you know what I mean? So I just think it's all about status, all the time, everywhere you go, right? It's like, where do you buy your breakfast burrito?
Yeah.
What bar are you hanging out with? Who's your friend? And it's true, like, there's certain restaurants you're not going to be able to get into. Like, a friend of mine, I got into some restaurant because I was with people, and one of the guys, his dad is like one of the most powerful and rich showrunners in the history of Hollywood, right? So, like, the cook is like hugging him, is like, oh, hey, welcome, you know what I mean? But it's like, if you don't know the right people, you can't even get in.
Right.
They'll just say that they're full, and they're not. But I also get it, because there's just celebrities everywhere all the time. There's important people everywhere all the time. And, you don't want to, like, bump into somebody and then, like, there's the problem, and there's like, well, who's that? How'd they get in? And then so the blacklisting thing is very real. What's funny is that Clubhouse kind of operates the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the green bean on Clubhouse, right? Who's the
Yeah.
It's so crazy, but it really affects a lot of things. I will say, I have built such a large network around the world in finance, film, entrepreneurs, like Grant Cardone's a Clubhouse buddy of mine. I was joking around with him the other day, right? It's like, but there's levels to the game. Like, I'm now in, like, the highest level, right? So it's like, I know all the top people. We're all friends. We hang out. I have people flying to Canada from the United States for my birthday this weekend. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of where I'm at now. That wasn't the way it was, but I will say, in terms of Hollywood, Clubhouse and Hollywood are very, very similar. Not that, like, all the top Hollywood people are on Clubhouse. There were quite a few who are now gone because everybody's working, but the game is exactly the same. You will not get modded in a room. It's like the restaurant, like the Polo Lounge you're saying. Right? You're not going to get into that room and get a status position unless you know the right people. You absolutely won't. That, I think, is very instructive for how Hollywood works.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So let's shift a little bit and talk about the pandemic, because you've always been around, but your career is like soaring. So what happened during the pandemic for you? Like, what were you, like, what I really love, everybody's like, oh, the pandemic, there's two types of people during that moment. It was the entrepreneurs who said, I see opportunity here, and they freaking took it. Like, that's me. Like, I did more in the pandemic than I've done in years. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this. I'm going to do this. Right. The movers and shakers. And then there was the people who it was fear-based. We're all going to die. I'm going to sit on it. I can't do it. Everybody, we can't do it. And I'm not putting anyone down. I'm not saying you shouldn't have stayed home. We all stayed home, but we are in the time where you can stay home and build an empire. And that's what we're talking about. So what happened? That you've always had a good career, but let's talk about what happened here, because you just went soaring.
Okay, what happened? Two things happened. So Clubhouse is the second thing, but the first thing was that I ended up getting a distribution deal for a feature film I wrote and directed at the beginning of the pandemic. And that's part of the story, right?
Yeah.
So, I wrote and directed this feature film called The Market, which is like a gangster movie about Wall Street. It's very, very vulgar, but on purpose, right? It's sort of like an accurate assessment of Wall Street. It's sort of like toxic masculinity as an allegory for capitalism.
Yeah.
It's a pretty intense movie. But I had peddled that movie for 5 years and I couldn't get a distribution deal. And then what happened is that content started drying up because all production got suspended when COVID started, right? Because everybody was afraid and everybody's going to die, and a lot of people did die.
Yeah.
And so everybody's watching Netflix. And then what happened is that people stopped running out of new stuff to watch, right? Because everybody's seen everything on Netflix, everybody's seen everything on Amazon. And so what happened is that I was in a unique position where I'd had new content ready to go. Even though it was 5 years old, nobody had seen it because I didn't get a deal.
Right.
So I was talking to a friend of mine who had optioned another one of my projects, and everybody was looking for content. And I mentioned that I had a feature film and I was really just going to put it on YouTube because I was so frustrated. She was like, well, I have a distribution company. I was like, you do? I sent her the movie. She picked it up. I got a small distribution deal. And then from there, partly I think because there was no competition, I ended up doing maybe 30 interviews for my feature film during the pandemic before Clubhouse. So I joined Clubhouse February 2nd, but I already had all this momentum for this feature film. And I was starting to do podcasts and interviews around the world. And so when I got to Clubhouse, well, I already had a sort of like big fish to like promote with a lot of momentum, where I'd just been interviewed quite a bit. I'd actually been generating quite a lot of publicity for myself in Canada, a little bit internationally when I joined Clubhouse. And then once I hit Clubhouse, I mean, right away, it just changed everything. I actually stopped auditioning. I had one of the best agents in Canada. I was auditioning for Hollywood movies and Netflix series and all this stuff. I actually paused auditioning and I put 100 to 120 hours into Clubhouse every single week. So when you talk about the entrepreneurs inheriting the earth, that's exactly what it was. I was locked down too, like everybody else, but I was on Clubhouse 120 hours every single week. So now, sometimes these things are hard to sort of quantify, but I'm probably the most influential person on Clubhouse in film in the world, right? If I'm not number one, I'm certainly in the top 3 people in the world, right? And then from there, I expanded across industries, where now I'm I think one of the top influencers on the entire platform, because I'm tapped into every different industry, every different major player, every different entrepreneur, and then I just have utilized the leverage to promote my movie over and over and over again, and then it led to all these other opportunities. So that's kind of what I did during the pandemic.
Well, that's incredible. So I got on Clubhouse in the beginning, kind of January, February, but I was going through a divorce and a lot of things. So I was like, I can't put myself on here. I just wasn't willing. And I was getting into those rooms, and I got the green bean, and I was like, I can do this. But the problem is I was just not mentally ready for that. But I was watching, we have mutual friends too, where I was like, look at what they're doing. And I'd get into rooms and I'd sneak in sometimes, like watching. And I'm like, look at what's happening here. We are creating this insane network that just took away a lot of that. Even though you said there's the hierarchy, it still gives you that access. And access was everything. And to tap in and to create insane relationships, because that's what it's all about, is building relationships. So you say you got into every industry. You're in the finance industry too. You say that you got some finance. Talk about that. Like, how did you segue into that? I mean, yes, Clubhouse, but what was like, is it Bitcoin? Like, where did you go in the finance part?
It's funny because I actually had a first meeting yesterday. I'm having a second meeting tomorrow to be part of a very exciting entrepreneurial endeavor, which is like several different industries. So I think what happened is that I just started to build so much attention in the film space, because at first I was only doing film, right? And I've been in the film industry since the 90s. So it's a pretty logical place for me to go. I started by asking questions, and then I started to get to know people. People found out how much experience I had. I started getting modded. I'm a good networker. I made a lot of friends. I started getting interviewed a lot. And then a lot of people started to know who I was, right? What's interesting about the film space is that there's a lot of sort of like intersectionality in that space. And I don't just mean in terms of like race, gender, sexuality. I also mean across industries. I mean regionally. I mean internationally. And so you have a lot of unique people who come to the film space because everybody's kind of interested in celebrity culture. And I think that people associate film with celebrity. And so what happens is that those of us who build pretty big brands in the film space, we start getting in a way recruited for like other like industries. So I was doing like a lot of like business podcasts in Australia or motivation podcasts, you know, in England and like all these different things. And I started, I guess, accidentally leveraging my film profile to make relationships outside of film. It just sort of happened organically. Now it's very intentional. So I get modded from 5 a.m. to midnight, like all day, every day in any room I want, pretty much, right? And so generally I stay with the biggest rooms because those are where really my friends are, because I'm pretty much friends with the top people on platform now, on platform and off platform. So I pretty much stay there. But once you have those relationships and people like you, that's when business opportunities come. So it's not that I really had any intention to go outside of film. I just started making friends with the top entrepreneurs in the world on the platform. So I have people who just like me and they want to work with me, and they're helping me to like create a film fund. And here's an entrepreneurial endeavor. And here's how you build a community. And here's a business that you can build. And then because I'm modded all the time, and I'm modded in the biggest rooms on the platform all the time, generally what happens is the biggest rooms attract the best talent on the app. And so I end up making friends with like the smartest and most motivated people in the world as well. And then I learn from them. So it's like, I feel like I've been doing my MBA all year because I've been like making friends with some of the smartest business minds I've met in my entire life. And when you do that, it just naturally changes the way you think and the opportunities that come your way.
You know, what's really interesting about that is I went to college for not this. I mean, I went to college for being a dental hygienist, right? But when I got into the entrepreneurial space, I was picked up by a mentor. And for 6 months, I worked for him for free. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I learned more in that 6 months of the back end, the front end, all the things in the business, in the direct sales space, in big companies and how they run. And I was creating things. And it's amazing. Like, experience trumps everything. Getting in and having those connections. Like, even when I was on Clubhouse for just a brief amount of time, and I'm coming back in and I'm coming in a different way, it was mind blowing. I'm like, what is happening? I mean, I have connections in the finance world. I'm not a finance person. Like, I have connections all over the world that I'm like, I'm making friends with these people. And it's just insane. Like, I wish people could grab onto that. Like, and they're like, I just want to get there. Well, you have to put the time in, but you have to build those relationships and get in front of people. And that is the easiest way. And why we're talking about it so much is it's the easiest way to do it. And the pandemic opened that door, and it was genius. And so let's keep going, because you're playing. So you are on episodes. It says new monogamy is the new monogamy. Let's talk about it. Well, what the heck is that? So I would be interested. Sure. I'm going to have to watch this. So where is that located? Is that on Netflix, or where is that at?
So, okay. So this is actually like a web series we shot independently, but it's a really good team. You've got like some of the best actors in Canada. My friend Kat Hostick is the creator. She also directed every episode. She's also the star. She's directing some of the biggest television episodes in Canada. And she's pretty young. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say her age, but she's pretty young. She had an impressive resume. So she's already like a very established director for feature film and television. And this is kind of her baby. So she created this whole show. It's called Polly's the New Monogamy. I play her best friend. It's kind of like a sex comedy. It's just a really interesting look at relationships. It mostly focuses on these three female friends. It's almost like a modern day Sex in the City.
Okay.
But it's just very contemporary. It's very, very funny. It's very well shot. I think it's going to be a smash hit. Her goal is eventually to get it to television. I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to end up. It's not released yet. We're doing press Friday. But I mean, my role is finished shooting. I'm in every episode. It's really, really strong. Like, I can't wait for people to see it. I don't know exactly where it's going to be released, but early 22. I would just, if that sounds enticing, like, definitely watch it. And there's going to be subsequent seasons. It's too good for it not to do more.
Exactly. So a lot of when we talk to actors or people who have done film, I always ask, like, what is your favorite platform to work on? Do you want to do, like TV series? Do you love that? Do you love, is Netflix like your place? Like, I want to go work in Netflix, like, world. Or, you said HBO was in there, but then a lot of people go back to their theater days. And, what was your favorite theater day experience first? Because I would like to know that.
Sure. Look, I'm a classically trained theater actor, right? So I studied Shakespeare in theater school. So for me, like, the best thing to perform is always Shakespeare, just because that's my training. But I enjoy lots of different things. I do think that if I had to just pick one medium for the rest of luckily I don't have to do that, but if I did, I would choose feature film. So I've just been asked to be the star of a feature film, where I'm in, like, every single scene. I'm like 90% of the movie. It's a tremendous opportunity. But I like that better. Like, I like television. Television pays the best, but you often don't get the time to really, like, do the role you want to do, because it's such a beast. You're moving a giant ship all the time when you do a television series. So, there's just so many days and so many episodes, so many people. Blah, blah, blah. So from an actor's perspective, like, it's a great opportunity, but in feature film, you can really take your time more. And, like, I love plays as well. Like, I love the rehearsal part, but what's frustrating for me about theater is that it's magical because it kind of only exists in this sort of ephemeral time where you're there, right? And then it's just a memory where it's magical, but it's a little frustrating because my best performances have been on stage and nobody could ever watch them, right? Maybe you could film it, but it's not the same thing. If you like a home video of whereas my feature film, I mean, literally for 5 years it's been done, and then I got a distribution deal. It's the exact same product. There are people watching it today who are like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." Yeah, well, it's been done for years, but you can still see the same product. You can still have that same experience. So for me, the reason I made that movie was that it was actually a play. It was my best play that I'd written and directed. And I had two choices in front of me. It's like, okay, well, I can tour my best play so people can see it in different markets, or I can learn how to make a movie, because then essentially I could tour the play by emailing you a copy of the movie. So I decided to get into movies that way. And now that I've, made movies, and I'm pretty experienced now, directing film and television, I prefer to work in that medium, specifically feature film.
Well, I think it's work harder or work smarter, not harder. If you think about it, like, okay, I was just listening, and my daughter brought it up today. She goes, the Mariah Carey song, All I Want for Christmas, it's back up on the top of the charts again. And it's funny because how old is that song, right? Backstreet Boys just hit like 1 billion something on, I don't know if it was crazy, but think about that was in the 90s, right? Like 90s or 2000s, early 2000s. You can continue to, you leave a legacy when it's on film, when it's there, when people can go back. Like you said, you could have recorded it, but it's not the same experience. You don't get the same emotion. When you can listen to a song think about it, songs we love and movies we love. I love classic Hollywood. I watch old movies sometimes, and I will watch and watch and watch and just think about that person. You almost get etched in stone, like what we can do now. It's just incredible. You can leave a legacy, and it's on film. It's, we all can, what we're doing right here. If, the podcast goes and all of a sudden it goes viral, this episode will go over and over and over. People can find it all the time. Like, it's just amazing what we have right now in this world that we can do, and that you just keep going and going. I think it's incredible.
I actually think it's more than a legacy too, right? Like, I think it's sort of like a perpetual release.
Mm.
Um, and I say that because I believe that my independent feature film that I made for $12,000, okay? And if you watch the film, it does not look like a $12,000 film. Every element is very well done, very professional. Um, I believe it's the most promoted and marketed Canadian feature film ever. I don't know. Like, there's not really like a book that has but I procured about 100 interviews now for my independent feature film out of Canada in a country with no star system. And there's a very small number of films who have put that much time into promoting one project. Partly I did it because I couldn't get a distribution deal for 5 years. Partly I did it because I became this major influencer on Clubhouse. Partly I did it because of the pandemic and I don't have any other projects. And partly I did it because of my personality. But what's really interesting is that every time I talk about the project, I'm reaching new audiences. And every time somebody new watches it, they're experiencing it for the first time.
Yes.
You never have to stop. You know, what's so interesting is that people will like make a film, it'll do theaters. In Canada, it's really like a week or two. In the United States, depending on the breadth of your release, maybe you'll do it a few weeks, something like that. You'll go to a streaming platform or a series of them. Maybe you get a television sale or a bunch of them. But in pretty much all cases, within 1 year, you're not talking about that film anymore. You're on to the next, right? I've been talking about my film for 11 years because we made the play we produced it in 2010. And so we were promoting it. Then I was trying to turn it into a movie. We did an Indiegogo campaign, all these things. So that took 5 years, made it. And then that was 6 years. I was talking about the same project. And then another 5 years to try and get a distribution deal. We're talking about it. Now it's been 11 years. And people are like, oh, what's this fresh, hot, independent film that I wrote a script for 12 years ago or whatever, right? But what's so interesting is that you can keep pushing it. So this legacy is like an evolving legacy, right? It's because a legacy, generally you're looking back, oh, remember that? That's actually not the case, because I have a product where if I continue to promote it, I can continue to generate sales and audience and eyeballs. So really, as long as I'm alive, I can keep getting new audiences. And then even after I die, somebody else can just pick up where I left off and continue to get audience and promotion and experiences. It's a really interesting way to think.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same with Tyler Perry. He spent years on the same project, and everyone, it went years and years and years. Nobody wanted to pick it up. And I think it was like 15 or 20 years in, and they finally picked it up. It was like overnight success. There's no such thing. This took forever. Like when you see when somebody's passionate, you spent 11 years promoting this. You've got to be passionate. So let's go into this part.
Passionate or stupid? I'm not sure which one it is.
Well, either one. But it's almost tunnel vision, because this is what you're going to do. You have a purpose, right? So for people listening, I always want to encourage, like, you have to freaking stick to something and find what you love. Because if you don't love what you're doing, there's no point. That's why you keep quitting. Like, people just keep quitting and they go to these jobs that they hate, and then they look at the crazy people like you, like me, like they're like, oh, you're doing so well now. Wait a minute. There was 10 years, 15 years. You didn't support my ass doing anything. And now you're like, oh, it's not like that. It took a lot. And you have to go through, I always say this, you have to go through the shit to come out clean, like little Shawshank Redemption.
Right.
You got to crawl through the river shit. Nobody wants to. I say this all the time on Broken Record, but they don't even want to attempt it. They don't even want to get dirty. And it's like, you got to get a little dirty to come out clean. And I think that's really important to hear your story, because look at where you are. It's like all of a sudden you did all this work, sat 3 feet from gold. Most people during the pandemic or right before would have been, oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, forget this. I'm going to try something different. Right there. You kept going and boom, you hit gold. And now
11 years.
11
years. And now I'm repped in Hollywood.
Yeah.
right? I've had 2 Hollywood producers who want to produce my next script. I haven't decided what I want to do yet, but I have so many options in front of me. And do you know how many times I wanted to give up, but I just never could? I never could because I believed in what I was doing. I was like, no, this is the movie I want people to see when I die. That's how important it was to me. I gave up a lot for it. It was so hard, but I love it. I love the film, and I believed in it, and I pushed it, and I continue to push it, and it's changed my entire life. But the tenacity that you need to succeed at the highest level in the world is I like what you're saying, right? You have to be willing to like scuba dive through that river of shit for years.
And you said you had a lot. Well, obviously we all have things that hurt or happen.
Sure.
What do you think would be a moment where you were like, I'm done, but you didn't quit? But what was it? What was that one thing where you're like, wow, this could floor me?
What's funny is that I'm also divorced, and when I was looking to make my film, I remember there was somebody who said, "You're gonna get divorced if you make this film." And I did it anyway, and then I did get divorced, and then I remember the bottom dropped out of my life, and I went, "What did I do? But what's funny is that divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because even though I was really depressed for a really long time, but it forced me to really do intense work on myself, to ask myself hard questions I never would have asked, to do things I never would have done, to take risks I never would have done. And my life's amazing today. I mean, I look now and I'm like, man, the inflection point for my entire life was that divorce. And so I think that sometimes when you hit rock bottom, it's the best thing that can ever happen to us if you're willing to see it the right way.
Exactly. Rock bottom builds more millionaires, billionaires, and entrepreneurs than anything. You have to hit it because obviously what you're doing, you're going through this cycle. I mean, I hit rock bottom last year. So I mean, it was crazy, and it was quitting drinking, and it was big. Like I had to go through it, and I fell on my face. And I had to check myself. But what I was scared of is I knew if I quit drinking, that I would probably get divorced. I knew that, and it scared me, and it ended up happening. And so you go through that moment where you're like, holy shit, what am I doing? But at the same time, I knew it was right. I knew I had to keep going down my path. And then all of a sudden it was like, and it wasn't because I got divorced. It wasn't my marriage. It was this person who was living in this body that was not able to do it anymore. Right.
This conversation is interesting because I in the moment I realized that the project that I was talking to that producer with that I had optioned was about my divorce. And then the distribution deal came out of a side conversation talking about that project, which means that if I didn't get divorced, I wouldn't have written that project, which means I wouldn't have had that conversation with that producer, which maybe means I wouldn't have got a distribution deal, which maybe means I wouldn't have built what I built on Clubhouse. Isn't that crazy to track it back that way?
It is, but if I do the same thing, if I wouldn't have gone through what I went through, I wouldn't have taken the leap to do all the things I wanted to do. And that doesn't mean anyone was holding me back, but I had an opportunity where I was alone. I had a lot of time. We were on quarantine for the second time. And I was like, no, I'm going to align myself with one of the most powerful women I've ever met. I'm going to work side by side with her, and I'm going to get my ass up, and I'm going to get myself back. Like, I'm going to get my voice back. I'm going to get my business back. I'm going to do all things, but I wouldn't have made the decision because I would have stayed in a safe, comfortable space, and I wouldn't have forced myself to do it because I was in a comfortable space. I was like hiding in my little world. And all of a sudden I flung myself into a huge world of, media, TV, Hollywood a little bit, entrepreneurs, high level, 7-8-figure people. And it was like, I would never done that. I would have always talked about it and never done it. And so we're not sitting here saying, and I don't want our viewers to think this, and they don't because they watch this, but it wasn't because somebody was holding me back. It's because the version of me that I was in that relationship had to die. And I always say that I had to die and I had to come out. And it took over a year of really tough stuff to come out of it, but it was still that struggle. I don't regret 1 second. And I guarantee you don't either. Even if someone said, oh, that's terrible. I've had people go, oh, that's so hard. That's so terrible. You know, I started losing my hair. I got PTSD. I don't want to bore you with that, but I had to go through it because I had to heal. I had to fix this person. And I wouldn't have fixed it unless I felt the pain. That's what I'm saying. Like, I get what you're saying. You're having a conversation that led to a conversation that led to a deal that puts you in momentum. And then all of a sudden now you're like, bam, 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 bam. And now I know who I'm going to call when I'm in West Hollywood when I need to get in a restaurant.
Right. Right. I'll get you in. I'll get you in.
Hey, I know, man. Oh my gosh. So funny. But you know what? This has been awesome. As we wrap a little bit, I really am glad that you opened up about that because it's important. People need to see the real you. I mean,
sure.
I didn't even know who you were before you got on here. Not like that. I wasn't prepared. Yeah. I knew who you were on paper. I know who you are on Clubhouse. I didn't know who you were inside. And now I do. And it's like, hey, hey, there's this cool dude I really like this man. So, okay. What's your next project that you're excited about? Or what's the next step, I would say? What are you really pumped about?
I mean, I always get asked this question. I've now been interviewed 40 to 45 times from Clubhouse off platform, which is wild, you know? And this question is asked almost every time. Yeah. And I have to be honest, I don't know. I don't actually know. I have kind of infinite opportunity in front of me. I have a really strong network. I've built amazing friends who are just brilliant and successful and lovely. And I'm so excited for the second half of my life because I just have so many amazing people on this journey with me. But I don't really know, like I'm kind of just really open. And I think partly why I've been able to build what I've built on Clubhouse is that I don't really have an agenda. Like I don't have, like some people, they're so fixated on selling that they can put you off from a relationship standpoint because it's like right away they're ramming promotion down your throat or whatever. Or for me, I've never done that. And I have really key relationships, very powerful friends. But also I've never asked anybody for anything, partly because I don't know what I want.
That's
right. Like
they're open to receive, but you're not looking, there's not a specific thing. I think that's important. I think, thinking about it, it's like, I've had more things pop in my lap and I'm not looking for it. I'm like, what is this? Okay. And I am a yes person. I think you are too. You're a yes person. So what that is I think that's kind of the better question. Whatever comes next, it's going to be a yes. Who knows what it is? It's going to be exciting, right? I just got asked. I'm like, oh, I'll go. Like, I'm going. Let's go to Dubai for a charity event. Hell yeah.
I just made a friend in Dubai the other day. Yeah.
There you go. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. That wasn't on my radar. I wasn't scheduled. I had to switch all my stuff. I'm going next week. But that's the thing is when you're like a yes, when you say yes, the world opens up. Like, 100%. I can't wait. I can't wait to see what you do next. It's going to be something crazy and it's going to be something probably out of the box. Like people like, wait, where was this? You pivot.
3 days ago, I was asked to as a last minute replacement. There was a big COVID scare here in Toronto. And then there was this huge event and they did premiere and then they lost all the media. And I was asked to do red carpet interviews, which I'd never done before. I've been interviewed on red carpets lots of times. I'd never conducted red carpet interviews. And I was like, sure, I'll do it. Great.
Bobby crushed.
I crushed it. It was amazing. I did it right. I did it. It was like I met, like NBA players and the best top politicians in Canada and celebrities and major business people. And it was just, I was in my element. I met so many people. I got so many publicity opportunities out of it. And it was just fun. And it was so unexpected. And it was just because I was like, yes, I'm in 100%. I never doubted it for a second. It's like, yes, I'm in. And that's exactly where I'm at right now. I'm interested. Obviously, I'm not going to say yes to just anything. Like there's certain opportunity. You have to give me an opportunity. But as soon as I find opportunities that excite me, I always say yes, no matter what. And it always turns out amazing.
And I think that's the way to live. I think it's important. I think this was honestly, I'm so grateful that it kind of flopped the way it did. Like, you know, it was like, oh, here we go. We're going here. We pivot.
Right.
And now look at, I made an incredible friend, and I think you're an incredible person. And I'm so grateful that I had you on here for our viewers, our listeners, because whatever happens next, it's going to be big. You're going big. I mean, I read a bio, but when you read a bio, it's like, okay, but when you hear the person on the other end, it's important for people to understand this. When you hear somebody's passionate about what they're doing, that's why you get excited about them. You can see a picture of somebody, there can be promotional clips. That means nothing to me. I get excited about people when they have conversations and they are passionate about what they are passionate about. And it's not just another interview. Because this one. Thank you for that. So as we wrap, is there any place people can find you besides Clubhouse? Just Instagram. What's your favorite place besides Clubhouse?
Yeah, I mean, Clubhouse is I live there, and probably the best platform if, you know, people want to check out what I'm doing is Instagram. It's just at Bobby Del Rio. But those are really the two. I mean, I'm pretty much on all the platforms, but I would say Clubhouse and Instagram. Clubhouse and Instagram are the best. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And those are, I mean, that's where everybody can find anybody. I just want to make sure there isn't like a website or anything like that, because this has been an incredible episode. Thank you, Bobby. Say yes, everyone. Say yes to Bobby Del Rio and get on his Insta, get into Clubhouse and listen to what he has to say and all those people that are on there with him.